Hello everybody, this is Dandy with KeySmash Studios and welcome to Devlog 2 of the KeySmash Crappy Space RPG. If you missed the first episode, you might want to go check on it as we talk about a lot of the beginnings of this. The link will be in the description so you can go check out the first episode before you get into here. But let's dive right into it. So the first thing we're going to touch on today is the character controller. One of the new mechanics that we added was fall damage actually, and because this is a space-based low gravity game, we made some adjustments to the game's gravity. Since we are using low gravity, we wanted the falling damage to feel appropriate. So we added some custom physics to edit the gravity, so the longer you are free falling, the faster you fall. Primarily, we had two reasons for this. Firstly, it's what you'd actually see in real life, even in low gravity. We wanted to make gravity that was fairly realistic, so it takes a while to fall faster and faster. You can see how far you have to fall before reaching terminal velocity, and that's another thing that's reflected in real life and is constant with physics of reaching terminal velocity in a low gravity scenario. Secondly, we wanted this mechanic to not feel bad for the player. If you're gliding down 200 meters really slowly and randomly die, it wouldn't make a lot of sense. So we wanted that speed to be reflected so you knew what was coming. And finally, we're spending a lot of time fine-tuning the character controller as we really want the movement to feel appropriate and fun. We want that to be a great mechanic of the game. Part of making this game was to have low gravity and really work with that because we think it's fun. The physics are very important to us. Next up, we have the camera controller. We actually been working on that and we recently tied the camera controller to mouse movement. Obviously, we're going for a fairly standard setup here and we plan to add some customizability later, but the camera moves left and right when the mouse moves left and right, and similarly it moves up and down when the mouse moves up and down. So we have the basic controls properly set up. Speaking in technical terms, the camera controller is a third-person clamped controller that utilizes an adjustable zoom. This is just a fancy way of saying that it's behind the player, up and behind, kind of over the shoulder but further up, and has some limits on it to stop the player from rotating too far and mixing up which direction is which. You can see this practice in almost any third-person game, and it's a fairly common practice to limit how far up and down the camera can rotate, as this helps the player feel like they're gliding behind their character as opposed to something that's just watching from an omnipotent third party, like way over the top, kind of like a real-time strategy game. It's a tiny detail, but it definitely helps with the psychology of immersion in third-person games. We also added a zoom functionality, so players can find the most comfortable setting in terms of the space between the camera and the back of the actual character. This will also help if the player is trying to solve a tricky jumping puzzle and maybe needs to zoom in and control the character's movement with a little more precision. The final setting on the camera controller that we want to talk about is avoiding collisions with walls. If you've ever played a really old 3D game that had a third-person controller, you can see that the camera sometimes get caught behind walls and obstructs your vision entirely. That's super annoying, and we wanted to try to avoid that. So there are two good ways to go about solving that issue. You could turn whatever object is in your way invisible, so when the camera pans behind it, it just becomes invisible or see-through. Or you can just slide the camera forward in front of the object, so the camera doesn't go through it, it collides with it, keeping it from passing through something it can't see. There is no true right answer here, as both are pretty jarring in terms of immersion, but we feel that sliding forward and zooming in when we hit something new is kind of the lesser of two evils for us. It's far better to be able to see what's happening than not, and we feel like the best way to do that is just to slide the camera to a position where it can see everything. Technically speaking, this is done with reverse raycast and some math to move the camera in the right direction depending on the object you're bumping into, but the end result is quite clean, and we're super proud of Imster for programming such an amazing thing. As always, she's putting the team on her back and making these mechanics look amazing in game. The next thing we want to touch on are some of the new models, actually. This week we started diving into some of the models we'll need to make this so we can supplement some of the art packs that we picked out online that didn't come from us. To be clear, we consider this a different process from modeling base levels, as there are objects that will be placed inside a base level, so we're working on the actual objects, not so much the map. One of the ways that we keep track of these models that we need is with a spreadsheet. As always, we'll post a link to all of our documentation, but the general gist is that we have a place where the designers can communicate with the modeler that models all of our needed things. Specific details that might be necessary, everything is recorded. Oftentimes, you might see some redundant models being made for the sake of immersion, so it's just how it goes. Having 3 different mushroom models makes the player believe a bit more that they're in an actual cave as compared to if you only had the one. Everything will always look the same. As you can see, we have a system where we can pass notes and label the importance of the model. Additionally, we communicate with each other on the status of each model with the status section. More models will be added to the list as we figure out what more we need, but the lists are more of the existing until the levels are designed. They help us keep track of everything we need as each level comes along, so that when things are completed, we throw them in the list. When they're done there, we know they're done. Speaking of level design, let's talk about level design. We're going to delve a bit further into the design process of making a level. As we mentioned briefly in the last video, the first step here is to make a 2D version of the level, which you can see an example of on the screen now. We utilize this method so that we can visualize and iterate on a 2D version much faster than we can on 3D versions. A 2D version you can change and revise much more quickly, and that helps us kind of flush out the levels on a little higher up of a level, instead of trying to get into the nitty-gritty right away, realizing we hate it and having to waste a ton of work. And you know, while it's not the prettiest thing in the world, it is effective. As you can see in the video of it being made, a base layer with the general geographic details is all you need. As we add more details and more layers get added on, we can iterate through different versions, helping us kind of solo in on what we truly want and what feels best for our game. If we want to swap where one set of AI enemies are in a level, we can just hide the layer and make a new one, and it doesn't require a ton of wasted effort or work, so much easier than trying to do this on a 3D plane. Once we nail down the 2D version of the level, we go ahead and make the base 3D version of the level, and you can see this process being done on the screen now. The end result is essentially a planned canvas for our level designers to use to make the world beautiful in 3D. As a quick aside to that, the process uses the decimation technique in Blender to make landscapes look and feel a little more low poly, which if you watch the first video, you know is what we're going for. We now have 2 levels designed and have begun the process on a 3rd level. You can find an up-to-date GDD with all of our levels in the description below with all of our other documentation. The main base level is the first area we're working on, along with a canyon level, and we're pretty near completion. They're almost done actually. The next level will be a cliff level though, and we're gonna follow that up with a cave level to try to diversify some of the ways that our levels look. In conclusion, we've done a lot of work since the last update. A lot of things have been done. We're really trying to flush out all the little pieces of this game, and it's been a really exciting experience so far. We're excited to keep working on it, and we're excited to bring y'all another update in the next couple weeks as we continue to progress through this game. Obviously, as I mentioned in the video, if you want any of the information that we have about this game, all of our documentation is going to be open to the public. So you can go through and look at our game design doc and our MDA, everything. If you want to know how this game is progressing, go look through there. And we're just going to continue to work on and update this as we go. Either way, thank y'all so much for hanging out. This has been another KeySmash devlog for our awesome crappy space RPG game. And we appreciate you joining us on this game design journey and learning alongside us. It's super cool. If you like what you saw and you want to be able to keep track of this game better, I recommend subscribing to us on YouTube. It's super helpful. You can hit the like button to help other people see this video. And if you really want to know more, you can check the description for a link to our Discord channel. We have an open line of communication with our entire community. People come in and ask us questions on how to set up servers or how we help them with programming, and we'd love to have y'all there. And if you really love what you saw, check out our Patreon. A lot of our code that we've written in the past for videos, and even parts of this moving forward, may be available on Patreon for subscribers. So it's a great place to go. Support KeySmash as a studios to help us continue working on games and teaching people how to make games, and just being there for the entirety of our journey. So once again, thank y'all for hanging out with KeySmash Studios. This has been Dandy, and y'all have a beautiful day. Bye, fam.